If you're a late 90s kid like me and watched SpongeBob for as long as I have, then you'd be aware of how amazing the show has been during seasons 1 through 5, as well as how horrifying it was during seasons 6 through 8. Thankfully, the show did get better by the start of season 9, thanks to Steven Hillenburg returning despite being sick at that time. And because of that, I was able to get back into SpongeBob and even recently watched seasons 11 through 12. While overall, I thought season 11 was good, season 12, not so much. But thankfully, I was able to find 10 episodes from both seasons that I enjoyed well enough to consider them the best from this era. Which is why, for my first ever top 10 video on this channel, I'll be showing you guys the top 10 SpongeBob episodes that I believe are the best from seasons 11 and 12. Now I also want to point out that the inspiration for me doing this video comes from one of my favorite YouTubers, Jim Reviews, as he has done multiple top 10 episodes around SpongeBob in these certain eras, whether they were the best or the worst. In fact, he even did a top 10 best episodes video from seasons 9 and 10. But now that he's retired from his channel and is now a full-time video editor and scriptwriter, I decided to do this video as a way of honoring him for how great he was. Now like Jim, I'm going to add in some rules here for this video, and that is, these episodes must be at their standard length of 11 minutes long, so therefore, I will not be including any special episodes like The Legend of Bikini Bottom, Goons on the Moon, and SpongeBob's Big B-Day Blowout, but other than that, everything else here is fair game. Now with that being said, let us begin. These are the top 10 best SpongeBob episodes from seasons 11 and 12. Number 10. The Crusty Slammer. We're kicking off this list with a very interesting episode. It begins with Plankton getting arrested yet again, but this time it's for vandalizing Bikini Bottom with graffiti. But since the Bikini Bottom jail is full, Mr. Krabs decides that he'll take Plankton as his prisoner along with a few dozen others, and even gets paid to do it, resulting in the Krusty Krab becoming the Crusty Slammer. Now, the reason why I'm putting this episode this low on the list is because of the way Mr. Krabs treats Plankton differently compared from the other prisoners. After Plankton tries to escape, Mr. Krabs decides to punish him by putting him in the hole, which is SpongeBob's body, and then treats him like a play toy, such as a yo-yo, paddleball, and even a jump rope, which is a bit excessive to me. Thankfully, Plankton does get released since vandalism is not a notorious crime to go to prison for. But once he tells Mr. Krabs this,
I hope it's worth what you're paying for it.
We notice that the other prisoners are getting pampered thanks to SpongeBob, so Mr. Krabs releases them, only for SpongeBob to return them the following day. Now the big reason why I like this episode a lot is the ending because of the payback Mr. Krabs gets for what he did to Plankton. After Mr. Krabs gets arrested for releasing the prisoners, he then becomes Plankton's prisoner, and Plankton tortures him by locking him in a tiny cage and throwing chum at him.
Mealtime, prisoner!
And, in all brutal honesty, I believe Mr. Krabs deserved it. Overall though, I really did like this episode a lot. It was very creative, very enjoyable, and it came with very good payback at the end of it.
You're going in the hole.
Number 9. No pictures, please. Now, not only is this the only Patrick-focused episode on this list, but this is the first of very few episodes on the show to become a parody of the classic 1960s show The Twilight Zone, or as they call it, The Title Zone. The plot centers on Patrick pretending to be a tour guide, and we get introduced to a guy named Ruby. And while Patrick shows Ruby around Bikini Bottom to every area he's been to, as well as SpongeBob and Squidward's house and the Krusty Krab, Ruby pretty much sums up every spot they've toured with one specific word.
Everything is so amazing! 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 Amazing?
And even though I hate Patrick, and that he is my least favorite character of the show, he was also really entertaining here as well. Case in point,
It fits my butt! Ooh, time for second lunch! Everyone, follow that bob! Go!
the last half of the episode is where the Twilight Zone effect comes into play, as after Patrick and Ruby meet a skeleton named Ribeye, they get chased back to Patrick's house for breaking his arm off, and a whole mob of angry people show up.
They done busted my dome!
They woke me up!
They
got pictures of me naked!
But once the police confiscate Ruby's camera, they notice there's no film. And that's when Ruby confesses that he didn't take any pictures and that he doesn't own a camera, and then he starts to disappear completely, scaring the crap out of everybody.
And we're backing away and backing away and backing away!
Believe me, I would have been scared shitless too if I witnessed something like that happen in real life. Besides that, this episode is definitely enjoyable and entertaining. Even though the plot was very basic, it's got some really good jokes and solid humor to make up for that. And plus, this is probably the first in a really long time where Patrick's charming stupidity really worked for me. Truly an amazing one to watch, am I right? Number 8. Broken alarm. When SpongeBob doesn't show up for work, Mr. Krabs assumes he's dead, but his alarm clock is actually unplugged. Once SpongeBob does try to plug it back in though, it ends up getting destroyed, so he has to go buy a new one despite being hesitant about it. Now what I like about this episode is the way they use the slapstick comedy with how SpongeBob tries to wake up. When he arrives at the clock store, he buys every single alarm clock available, and every single one doesn't wake him up on time, and he ends up being late for work. It was definitely funny seeing Mr. Krabs put a late sticker on SpongeBob every time he shows up late.
Late! 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 Still late! Late! Late!
But then, Mr. Krabs gives SpongeBob one last warning not to show up late again. Yeah, that or else right there is definitely enough to make you assume Mr. Krabs is going to fire his ass. And another highlight I'd like to point out is during the second half of the episode, as it pays a homage to Looney Tunes, and that's when SpongeBob gets an idea of using every single clock that failed to wake him up and turning them into a Ruby Goldberg machine, which helps him get to work on time and make Krabby Patties while he's still asleep. And during that process, we get a ukulele cover of the Raymond Scott song Powerhouse. Eventually though, you know this idea is not going to last long, and that was the case when Bubble Bass complains about not having enough pickles on his Krabby Patty, and then the machine goes to shit because of it.
You better be at work on time, or else I'll have to open up and close the restaurant an hour later.
Overall, a phenomenal episode. I thought the pacing was good, the writing was well thought out, the ideas were creative, and the slapstick use was perfect. Number 7. Chef Bob. When Mr. Krabs notices that the customers are watching SpongeBob make Krabby Patties and are enjoying it, he decides to turn the Krusty Krab into an open kitchen. But once that happens, SpongeBob gets nervous and tries to hide, but is threatened to be fired if he doesn't get back to work. Now this part of the episode is somewhat relatable to me because I currently work in the food service industry as a line cook. There have been a couple of times where I've worked in an open kitchen, but unlike SpongeBob, I don't get nervous when I see customers at all. In fact, sometimes I enjoy talking to them when I work. It makes my workday very enjoyable and it helps the day go by a lot quicker. Anywho, as SpongeBob tries to find a way to stop being nervous, he does so by finding a paper bag on the floor, resulting in him creating Chef Bob.
Hi, everybody! Who's hungry?
I guess I am.
Now things do start off well with this gimmick, as Chef Bob continues doing what SpongeBob did before by entertaining the customers with his cooking. However, it soon starts to become a show of insults when a customer tries to leave and Chef Bob insults him with the same words he got from Squidward.
What died on that guy's neck? Oh, it's his head.
Hey, what died on your neck? Oh, it's your head.
That little plagiarist.
Now what made this episode work for me is how SpongeBob was able to step up and put an end to this as the insults start to get out of hand later on. As the insults continue on, SpongeBob finally puts his foot down and the two of them start a massive brawl in which SpongeBob ends up winning, causing the customers to walk out, and Chef Bob getting fired because of it.
You are hereby fired!
Is this Squidward? Let me help you slip into something more comfortable. Like the gutter!
Honestly, this episode was so funny, and the insults were definitely the highlight of this episode's comedy. Gordon Ramsay, your insults are in for some serious competition here, pal.
Right, well, I'll get you more pumpkin and I'll ram it right up your fucking ass.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I don't speak Goober.
Number 6. Karen's Virus. This episode has more of an adventurous vibe to it than it does a comedy scenario. Karen ends up getting sick and contracts a virus from her friend Hannah, and this causes her circuits to get fried and start acting crazy. Plankton then asks SpongeBob to go inside Karen to kill the virus, and once inside, we get to see Karen's entire mainframe made entirely out of CGI, and it looks so damn cool. We even get to see Karen's version of Plankton, as well as SpongeBob, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs, and they're all based on how she imagines them.
Plankton?
Actually, I'm Karen's version of Plankton.
Money.
I hate everything.
Whoop, whoop, zing, zing.
While SpongeBob continues to hunt the virus down, Karen's craziness gets worse as she starts acting like a delusional maniac. And she does so by destroying the Krusty Krab, stealing a boat to take a joyride in, and ends up crashing into a country-themed bar. Eventually, SpongeBob does catch up to the virus at Karen's memory bank and watches it try to eat up and erase her memories. And when he tries to stop it, he is clearly outmatched based on his size. But of course, SpongeBob does find a way of why it's doing that, and that's because, well, he's hungry. Now, that was definitely a weird reason to why a virus was acting like that, but thankfully, the plan worked and SpongeBob was able to get the virus out of Karen and feed it a Krabby Patty. Sadly though, Karen didn't quite fully recover from this, as I'm sure this is a way of explaining that computers do need to take time to recover and reboot, and it is a shame that there wasn't enough time left in the episode for that part to happen.
Nope, I'm still delirious. But I like it!
And overall, while this is not one of the funniest episodes from the show, I did enjoy the adventurous vibe I got from it, and I truly thought that the use of CGI for inside of Karen in this episode was perfect. Like, just straight up perfect. Probably the best CGI I've ever seen from any show or movie I've watched.
No way, Planky, it's me and you, amigo! Woohoo!
Number 5. Karen's Baby. Yep, your eyes see correctly. We got back-to-back Karen episodes on this list. But the reason I like this one better than Karen's Virus is because of the morals it has for those who are parents and those who want to become parents. Karen orders a computer baby and names him Chip, and while she's excited to be a parent, Plankton, not so much. And throughout the course of the episode, we see Chip upgrading himself, starting off as a toddler, turning into an energetic elementary kid, and later a rebellious teenager. And while he does that, we see how Karen reacts to his behavior, which is the kind of behavior process those who want to become parents should expect from their kids when they grow up, myself included.
Oh, those monsters are too big. Come out of that game right now! Chip, get out of there! So you think you can do whatever you want because you're a teenager now? What did you just say to me?
When Karen gets frustrated from Chip's bad behavior, she makes Plankton talk to him, but he advises Chip to run away, showcasing the moral of what bad parenting really is. And when Karen finds out about this, she blows a freaking gasket on Plankton and threatens to kick him out if he doesn't find their son.
Karen, baby, let's be reasonable here!
You find our son and bring him home this instant or don't bother coming home!
Plankton eventually does and tries to save him from a gang of alley machines. When Plankton gets attacked by them, Chip tries to save him and ends up saying his first real words in the process.
Leave my father alone!
This gets Plankton really happy and it makes him enjoy becoming a parent. Once Chip is brought back home, he then upgrades into a college student, and this causes Plankton and Karen to get emotional.
I went to college.
And I'm sure this part relates to a lot of parents out there. Seeing their kids grow up and go to college is definitely an emotional feeling to live by. The episode then ends with Plankton and Karen watching Chip work as a bank ATM, and he messes with Mr. Krabs by refusing to give him his money.
That's my boy!
This was truly a remarkable episode overall. I liked the pacing here, and I thought the morals for parenting were put to great use. Definitely a rewatchable episode. Number 4. Squid Noir. Well, SpongeBob is now on the list of TV shows and movies who have done their own take on a noir-focused episode or movie. The plot begins with Squidward practicing his clarinet for an upcoming recital he's set to perform at, but after getting ready, his clarinet gets stolen, and that's when the episode turns noir, and Squidward narrates throughout the rest of the episode.
That's how it began. My life smashed to bits. My living room covered in broken dreams.
And yes, of course SpongeBob had to tag along with him, but we do get a nice gag of him constantly losing his quarter every time he flips it. Throughout the course of the episode, Squidward and SpongeBob decide to talk to the suspects who they assume stole the clarinet, thus being Mr. Krabs and Bubble Bass due to how they bashed them for playing his clarinet in their presence because, yeah, we all know how horrible Squidward is when it comes to practicing. Anywho, both Mr. Krabs and Bubble Bass are innocent thanks to their alibis, so they move on to Patrick, who did throw a rock at Squidward thinking his clarinet was attacking him.
Squidward's being attacked by that pointy, screeching monster.
What are you?
You're welcome.
When they get back to Squidward's house, they see Patrick inside along with Jelly on the floor, which makes Squidward realize that the culprits who took the clarinet were actually the jellyfish. And the episode ends with it going back to its original colors and Squidward performing at the Jellyfish Fields nightclub. I really enjoyed this episode from start to finish. I thought the pacing was on point here, and I liked how the detective work was used. A truly phenomenal job, done by
Squidward Tentacles, Jazz Detective.
Number 3. My leg, or I'm sorry, my leg! Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that SpongeBob would make an episode dedicated to its all-time best running gag.
My leg!
Shut up, Fred.
The episode begins with Fred the "My leg" guy and a compilation of him hurting his leg over and over, and the doctor threatens to get it replaced with a robot leg if he hurts it again. Once released, Fred gets followed by SpongeBob, who decides to act all incognito and protect Fred from hurting his leg again, and he does so by preventing Fred from stepping on an oil spill, a banana peel, a pile of urchins, a huge bear trap, as well as acting as his boss at his wood chipping job. We then find out that Fred is trying to hurt his leg on purpose, and that is because he has a crush on one of the nurses from the hospital. We then get a nice transitioning use of slapstick here, where he and SpongeBob go through multiple attempts to hurt his leg, but they end up failing as a result, such as using a prison mallet, getting stung by jellyfish, getting bitten by a big worm, and getting run over by a train.
Don't hurt your leg! Don't hurt your leg!
Mr. Robot, that is very rude. How are we supposed to break Fred's leg now?
Thankfully, the plan ends up working when SpongeBob gives his leg to a robot, only to grow a new leg, and an ambulance lands on Fred, destroying his upper body, and both of them end up in the hospital.
My head and torso!
And the episode then ends with us being introduced to the nurse Fred has a crush on, and we get an enjoyable musical number involving him confessing his love for her, which I thought was really good. Overall, I loved this episode a lot. I love the humor, I love the setup, and I love the slapstick usage. This episode is a definite classic in my opinion.
I need to protect Fred's leg, and I can't do it alone.
Number 2. Teacher's Pests. This episode is a freaking laugh riot from beginning to end. And yes, this is another Krabs vs. Plankton episode, but what makes this one feel fresh is that it doesn't involve the Krabby Patty formula, at all. Instead, the plot for this episode begins with Mr. Krabs and Plankton in a road rage duel with each other. Once they do, they cause a massive highway collision and are sentenced to boating school. So yeah, the main purpose of this episode is to show how bad road rage is, but in a really over-the-top comedic way, which I love.
This traffic school!
Once Mr. Krabs and Plankton get to school, they continue fighting with each other by choosing which desk to sit at, and then eventually try to earn a good noodle star by giving and eventually force-feeding Mrs. Puff with fruit. And it was just freaking hilarious. But we're not done yet, we're just getting started. And also, yeah, SpongeBob does have to be a part of this episode too, but thankfully, he wasn't annoying at all, and pretty much spent the whole time as a backseat character, so the spotlight stays on Mr. Krabs and Plankton.
Beautiful stars!
Once we start the driving portion of class, Mr. Krabs and Plankton continue being mischievous, and once again, it's freaking hilarious. Once they start driving, we get a hilarious scene of them road raging again and racing each other on the course like freaking maniacs. Believe me, the first time I saw this scene, it nearly killed me. I just could not help but laugh my ass off seeing Mr. Krabs and Plankton go at each other like that. And the animation used in this scene was just as top tier as it can possibly freaking be. And of course, the two of them, along with SpongeBob, end up failing, and then this happens.
I finished that.
Now, like I said, the animation along with the plot of this episode was so top tier that I could have put this at number 1. But I decided not to because I can't help but feel like this is a guilty pleasure episode. Even though it's trying to show us how bad road raging is, the way the episode's written is just so damn good that I literally cannot help but laugh at it.
Oh, it's on.
Oh, bring it!
Number 1. Mind the Gap. I freaking loved this episode. Probably the most I've ever enjoyed from a SpongeBob episode in a really long time. I thought the humor was perfect, the animation and art style were perfect, and SpongeBob and Squidward were perfect as well. The episode begins with Squidward tricking SpongeBob into thinking the gap in his front teeth was giving him health problems when really, he's easily annoyed at hearing SpongeBob whistling. When the gap does successfully get closed, we get a change in SpongeBob's voice, and wow, he sounds so damn cool.
Well, thank you, Dr. Squidward. Say, without a gap, my voice sounds almost cool.
And not only that, he gets a cool singing voice, and everyone pretty much treats him like he's hot shit now. When I first watched this scene, I laughed my ass off. I thought this was one of the most well-written and most creative ideas I've ever seen as my time as a SpongeBob fan. When Squidward notices this, he invites SpongeBob to join him to a local jazz club in town. When he shows up, he gets rejected, but when SpongeBob shows up, he gets welcomed extremely. And when Squidward tries to tell the club that SpongeBob's his bestie, we get one of the funniest faces in the show's history.
And he is my best friend.
Seriously, that cracks me up no matter how many times I watch that. Now surely, you know SpongeBob's gap's not gonna stay closed forever, and that was the case when he and Squidward perform on stage. But thankfully, the crowd enjoyed it. But when they perform again the following night, Squidward gets kicked out of the club for playing his clarinet poorly, no surprise there, so he retaliates by returning SpongeBob to normal. But once SpongeBob gets his gap back, he goes right back to whistling, and surprisingly, the crowd loves it. This is truly a phenomenal and hilarious episode. Not only do I consider this the best episode of this era, I consider this one of the best SpongeBob episodes of all time. Seriously, it's that great that you've got to watch this for yourself.
Oh, you're not leaving this time until you pay for the damages first.
This stinks.
Well guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it and want to see more videos from my channel, then please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons and ring the bell to get notified. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.
Hey, hipsters, it's Groovy Cats. I can dig it.